First of all, I was very pleased to be invited today, and even more pleased to hear Carla speaking about agroecology and its importance as a central approach to the problems that we are facing today. I will go very quickly through the first few slides. Next. And talking about how, as Carla already mentioned, agroecology is really addressing in a simultaneous way food security, climate mitigation and adaptation, and biodiversity conservation. Next. I won't spend much time on the problems. I think you are all aware about the needs, but a lot of them are really linked to our current food systems that are based on an industrial or conventional model of agriculture, where they've been promoting uniformity, simplification, economies of scale, the use of chemistry, both in fertilizers and pesticides, which have resulted in very serious land degradation, loss of carbon in the soil, and loss of biodiversity. Next. These food systems are unsustainable. You know that they are responsible for 1/3 of greenhouse gases. They make us vulnerable to climate change, and agriculture is responsible for 80% of biodiversity losses. So increasing food insecurity in the last several years has been another reason to really seriously rethink how we go about addressing food issues and food system issues in a comprehensive way. Next. So what we need really is transformational change. And if there has been one message that came out of the United Nations Food Systems Summit, is that need for transformational change, that just tweaking our current system to make it more effective is not going to do the trick. This has come out very clearly in the last few years in a whole series of important reports from IPCC, from IPES, and others. And what we need really is this paradigm shift, and I'll come back to that even further in a minute, whether we start from industrial agriculture as it is practiced in North America, in many countries in transition, in Europe, in many places, or from subsistence agriculture that is underperforming. We need that transformation towards diversified agroecological farming that addresses multiple needs. Next. So that different paradigm is really aiming to address at the same time, in a holistic manner, economic, environmental, climate mitigation, adaptation, health, social, and cultural objectives. In the past, these have been addressed independently and often in contradiction. Next. So how to define agroecology? There is not a written definition because it is a very complex concept, but rather it's been defined by 13 principles that are also reflecting the 10 elements that were adopted by FAO in 2018 in order to define that complexity. And this goes about or can be divided in 3 different domains: to improve resource efficiency, to strengthen the resilience, but also to secure social equity. And all of these elements are equally important. Gliessman, who is one of the fathers of the agroecology, has defined 5 levels of transformation. The 2 bottom levels are about increasing efficiency in the current industrial system. The second level is about substituting inorganic chemicals with organic chemicals or inputs. But these are just remaining in the same paradigm. They are not really transformational. And what is needed is move up to a third level where we redesign the system to perform on all these elements in a simultaneous way. And we go beyond just the farm, but address the food system transformation in its entirety. I could spend an hour on just going through these 13 principles, and I will leave that for another occasion. But I think it's very important to say we need to look at all of them at the same time. Otherwise, it's not agroecology. Next. What that means is that this different paradigm is not just about promoting a set of agricultural practices such as is promoted by climate smart agriculture or nutrition sensitive agriculture or precision agriculture that are looking at specific objectives again in isolation. It's about really a different paradigm where we take the best of all innovations that are compatible with the 13 principles. So it's not just a set of defined, a priori defined interventions. They are location specific, and we take all the innovations that are compatible with the 13 principles of agroecology. It's also about changing the social relations, empowering farmers, adding value locally, privileging short value chains, etc. Next. From an environment and climate point of view, it really provides the resilience that is needed to face the climate change that we have now. It's putting carbon back in the soil, it's boosting biodiversity, and very importantly, restoring degraded land. When we know that about a third of the agricultural land is severely degraded, this is an absolute requirement to restore these degraded lands in order to avoid further deforestation. And of course, it improves the ecosystem services like water and nutrient cycling, pollination, pest and disease management. Next. There are large-scale examples, and I'm just showing a picture here of farmer-managed natural regeneration in the Sahel, where now on millions of hectares, you have a real transformation of the landscape that not only puts more trees and therefore fixes more carbon, but also allows agriculture to become more productive again because of the change in the environment. Next. So the transformation is now already happening at scale. I mentioned this example in the Sahel. Carla already mentioned the example of Andhra Pradesh, where we have now more than 750,000 farmers that are practicing natural farming, which is the name they give to agroecology, and that in average has shown a 20% increase in productivity compared to the farmers that continue the conventional agriculture, and 50% increase in net income because of the increased productivity, but also the reduced input costs. There are other examples of really things that are changing. In West Africa, we have an Alliance for Agroecology of West Africa that brings together more than 70 organizations, farmer organizations, civil society organizations, research organizations that are working in practice. Farmer organizations at the regional level, like ROPA in West Africa or AFA in Asia, have now adopted agroecology as their strategy to move forward. And also national policies are being adopted in different countries now that are supportive of a transformation, agroecological transformation. Next. So we need to support that transition, which is often the most difficult step, is to move from the use of conventional ways of practicing agriculture to adopting this in a holistic manner, and that requires supporting farmers during the conversion. To look at true cost accounting, the true cost of the production of food, on taking into consideration the impact on the environment, on health, etc. And for example, taxing unsustainable practices and subsidizing sustainable practices, and doing away with subsidies that, for example, input subsidies that are having negative consequences. Facilitating access to land for young farmers to start farming in a sustainable way, and to support short value chains, linking consumers and producers. Next. So that transition is already underway. It's no longer a matter of saying yes, but is it going to work? It is demonstrated that it can work, but it involves at the same time changes in production practices, changes in social and economic relations, changes in knowledge generation and transmission, and changes in the institutional framework. And we have many examples of that already well documented, including in the report by IPES-Food. Next. We have been working on the emergence of a coalition on agroecology as a major outcome of the UN Food Systems Summit. This coalition aims really to bring together countries and organizations to work in mainstreaming agroecology and having really this paradigm shift where it should not be about just increasing investments in agroecology marginally and going from the 5% investment that we have maybe today to 10 or 20%, but it has to be really a major reorientation. We already have 27 countries that have joined the coalition, and several others will be joining in the near future, and 35 organizations, including the 5 major relevant UN organizations, FAO, IFAD, WFP, UNDP, UNEP, but also research, civil society, indigenous people, and philanthropic organizations that will be working together. This coalition is being formed right now. It's defining its way of operating, and we hope that also the European Commission will be an important player in this coalition in the future. Next. So to conclude, we may have different pathways depending from where we are coming, and there are of course many intermediates between underperforming subsistence agriculture and unsustainable industrial agriculture, but we must really apply these 13 principles of agroecology to achieve food security while addressing climate and biodiversity challenge at the same time. There are still many obstacles, including vested interests that are trying to say that this will not work, that it's not able to feed the world, etc. We now have sufficient evidence that this is not the case. We can feed the world much better and addressing at the same time climate and biodiversity challenges. What we must avoid, next slide, is that we continue to impose or support a transformation of underperforming subsistence agriculture in unsustainable industrial agriculture. That must stop, and we must adopt really this different paradigm. Next. I thank you, and I'm willing to answer any questions later on. But I hope that we consider that we are really at a turning point where we can move from just considering agroecology as a marginal thing, even if it has a role to play, towards adopting agroecology as the major way forward to address all the challenges in a sustainable and integrated way, also as Carla mentioned in her introduction. I thank you for your attention.